Hi, welcome back to the Practical Energy Manager. Today I've come to our regional office in Shipdham to explore some of the options for energy efficiency measures and just to give the guys here a bit of more of an overview of how they can be more energy efficient in their day-to-day lives. This is a fairly typical layout, so we can see we've got sort of lights, a few work desks and some heaters. Now what I can say for this particular premises, which is fairly typical of most, is that the heating will take around 60% of the energy, lighting will take a further 30%, and then the appliances maybe another 10%. And that's especially true from this office in particular because we've got electric convection heaters, there's no gas here, there's no oil, so everything's just going through in the mains. So if we start with the heaters where we can have the biggest impact, these are basically just a normal convection heater and just a main switch, manual control. They are thermostatic, and if we just look in here we can see that there's like a couple of switches here to set it for high or low and also for output. So if I just have a little fiddle with that, we can see there's a little gauge on there and that's set to number 2. Now obviously this is a more energy efficient way just to keep that down at 2 instead of whacking it up at 6. What I have seen in offices, typical example is people will come in the morning, especially in the winter, it's quite cold, and they'll put the thing straight on and put it up to 6. Whereas actually it would be much more energy efficient and typically carry about a 10 to 15% saving on heating if people were just to sort of come in with the expectation that they're going to have a little bit of a cooler start and just set that maybe to a level 3 or 4, somewhere in the middle, and just let the place heat up gradually. So the other element in this office what we have is quite a lot of these tube lights. And what I can say for this particular office is in 2015 we swapped them out for an LED solution. So we didn't actually change the entire fitting, we just changed the bulbs in what's known as a retrofit option. And that was about, for this particular office we had around 80 of these fittings, and that cost around £3,000. And we've now achieved return on investment in around 18 months. So now this office will be enjoying an annual saving on its energy bill of around £800. So that's quite a good initiative. These particular lights are all manual switch control, but they could be on a passive infrared sensor, and it's an opportunity that they are considering moving forward. Another thing with respect to lighting is that we don't actually have to have a huge area, a huge space lit at any one time. People in this office in particular have adopted some small desk lamps, so when they're working they've got basically a task light. They can just have that at a local level on their desk, and thus negating the need to have these other lights on pretty much all the time. So perhaps maybe untypical of some offices, this particular one actually has segregated rooms, so it's not open plan. And along the heating theme, there are a couple of things here which you could do to employ to save some heat. So for example, keeping the blinds drawn. Maybe if you like natural light that's a bit of a hindrance, but it is good for energy efficiency. We do have double glazing here, so that will also add a benefit. What we can also do is try and keep the doors closed between offices, especially this one which we're looking at right now, as it leads onto an unheated corridor. So it'd be best to keep that one closed wherever possible. So when we look at the workstations and the computers, what we have seen in the business is a shift from moving from like desktop computers, big heavy bulky desktops, to more portable laptops. Now with these obviously we've seen a lot of extra screens go in because people like to look at different screens, but this has an energy impact. So how we can reduce that is in the settings on the computer, which you can look into. You basically change that power saving mode, and what it does, it sets the interval at which the screen will dim and then eventually go on to standby mode. And typically for my machine I've got that set down to about 3 minutes, something like that, and that helps me reduce my energy consumption on my computer. When it comes to welfare facilities, we do have a fully functioning kitchen here at Shipdham, which isn't too untypical of our regional offices. See, we've got a toaster, What we haven't got in here is a kettle. Instead we've got one of these zip taps. Now zip taps are brilliant because they provide a constant source of hot water for the hot drinks, and also stop you having these cycles on the kettles which are quite energy intensive. So these are much more energy efficient, typically to the tune of around 20-25% on the typical use of a kettle throughout the cycle of a working day. So it has a noticeable saving. So I've come a little bit further along into the office at Shipdham here, and got one of my colleagues, and he's got this office in here, and he's just going to tell us a little bit about how he likes to set things up. It's fairly typical of our office staff. So just tell me, Nick, basically you've got the windows in here. It's a nice light airy place. How do you feel working in this environment with the lights how they are? Or the lighting, shall we say?
The lighting, well, I do prefer to have the natural lighting.
Yeah.
I find it makes you feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
The energy efficient lights, yeah, they're okay. It took a little bit getting used to because they were a different type of light than what we're used to. But yeah, that's fine. They've been in now over a year, I think, and they're fine. Yeah,
cool.
No problems at all.
Would you say you're conscious of the level of heating when you come in? So every day when you come in here, you might actually consider going into the heat and maybe changing it around a bit, or do you just kind of leave it alone?
I just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Because these offices, this one is a metal office. This is like a site office.
Yeah.
So in the winter it's pretty cold, but we don't leave the heating on overnight. We just put it on in the morning, and in the summer it gets quite hot. But we have the air conditioning unit there that we put on if it gets too much for us.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. And I guess, in terms of your own personal experience, why do you think it's important to consider energy efficiency?
Well, being commercial, I always look on the money side. So obviously, the less you use, the less you pay, and it's waste as well. I can't bear to see lots of lights on all over the place. So we turn it off and keep it to a minimum, really.
Great, thanks very much. And I've got Adrian here, and I just wanted to ask you, Adrian, is energy efficiency important to you? And if so, why is it important?
Well, I think energy efficiency is important to the whole planet, to everybody, because we've got this enormous appetite for energy now for whatever we do, whether it's in our offices, our homes, on our sites. We've just got this enormous use of energy everywhere.
Right, so I found a couple more of my colleagues. I've got the office manager for this divisional offices, which is Sarah, and I've also got Dick Watts. And I just wanted to ask them why energy efficiency is important to them. And Dick, would you like to start and just tell us what your thoughts are on that?
Well, because I'm paying the bills, yeah. Generally, the less energy we use, the less it costs me.
So as I mentioned earlier in the video, we did an energy efficiency study on this office, and we've reviewed that since. How has your experience as office manager been with having that process, and now what your considerations are moving forward?
I think we've been a bit more aware of it once it was brought out into the open, and I think people have asked about the right setting for heaters and that kind of thing, and making the most of the optimum temperatures, and we have everything serviced regularly to make sure it's efficient and working properly. So it's yeah, perhaps a way to go, but certainly some improvements have been made very quickly.
And not least the lights, of course. So we put these LED lights in a couple of years back, as I've mentioned. How have you found the experience of those being changed over from the old fluorescent tubes to the LEDs in terms of personal work experience?
They seemed a completely different colour to begin with, but once we got used to that, depending on where desks were situated under them, some people have needed an extra source of lighting just because they don't provide as much wide light, maybe. Yeah. But they're fine. They've made
I mean, what do you feel about the light stick?
I wish they were a little bit dim when we first. It is a strange light. You have to get used to, really. Yeah, blue.
It's more blue.
Yeah, more blue.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the only thing I make about energy efficiency is the cabins, because we're in a cabin here.
We are. Yeah, absolutely.
I think they could be better insulated, so they're not so cold in the mornings.
So that's an energy efficiency action we should take forward, and thank you very much for your opinions.
Okay, all right.
So I'm here with John Mason in the Shipdham office, and I wanted to ask John basically what and why energy efficiency is important to him, both in his personal life and also in the office. So John, if you could share your opinions with us.
Oh, sure. Sarah has been into my office and just questioning me about the possibility of introducing photovoltaic panels on some of the buildings we have in the office here. And there are certain difficulties that we might face in doing so, but it's worth exploring. And I was just telling Sarah about my personal situation where I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago we decided that we would introduce some PV panels on the roof at home, and I was just bemoaning the fact that I was getting during the winter something like 15 pence a day return on that investment, but in the summer something like £2.20 or something in that order, which seems fairly low, but when you take it on average over the year, I think our payback is in the region of 6 or 7 years. So after that, the energy is free. So good time to be.
Absolutely.
And, in due course, I hope all the panels will improve, and everyone will benefit from that early investment.
Absolutely. So we talk about the wider benefits. Do you think by doing that you're very conscious of the wider impacts to reduce carbon emissions associated with that? Was that so? Obviously there's a commercial aspect which you've explained perfectly, but also do you feel like you're doing your bit by having those solar panels?
Whilst again it's an expensive investment, it's the right thing to be doing. We all need to be going that way, making the most out of cutting down on raw fuels.
Perfect. Thanks very much for that. So, I hope you all enjoyed that. We've got a broad range of opinions there from all of the people at Shipdham who were here today. I'm now going to head off home, but before I do so, I think we can definitely be turning the lights off. We can definitely be turning off the heaters. We can be closing the blinds and turning off the computers. So there we have it. See you on the next one.